Showtime!
Hello and welcome to episode 46 of the Horsemen Podcast. It's been a little while. It's been a month. But like I said, we took a little break to also think of some ideas, and we are back. Of course, joining me as always, up above me, even though you can't see his handsome mug, Artur.
Again, Happy New Year, everyone.
Of course, we also have Ricky.
Yellow.
And then next to me, the always lovely Hannah.
Bonjour!
Nice.
And already in my Twitch chat, my friend Lindsay says, "Thanks for the jump scare, Jesus, lol." I guess you jump scared her with your showtime.
Oh shit! You actually put that in? Holy crap!
Yeah.
I imagine if Ricky was one of those Five Nights at Freddy's animatronics.
Imagine
what
that.
are you saying?
The jump scares.
Mm-hmm. Well, my nickname's Horror Master. It's canon in the name.
So he did play the game.
I played it on Gary's mod, and good God. But anyway, so yes, we are here for episode 46. Only the second time we've ever done an episode like this where we are talking about a particular album. And for this time around, we're continuing with a folk theme here. We did Agalok the Mantle last time. Now we're doing Primordial to the Nameless Dead.
Right here.
Mm-hmm.
Although
Even though
you
we
can
can't see you.
Yeah, ball.
Oh, loading.
Loading.
Don't let it be the two purple
that's
squares.
okay.
Can it be? This year will be the year, maybe. And it's funny.
Nah,
It's always before we start recording. Before we start recording, his camera works. After that, zip.
It just goes away. I don't understand it.
The connection certainly
And you were starting.
hurts.
Yeah, that's okay. And you were starting all loading, and I remember loading. I mean, rawhide? Anyone?
Anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, we're
Back to
talking
the regularly scheduled program.
Yeah, so we are talking Primordial to the Nameless Dead. Figured before we talk about the album, let's give a brief history about Primordial up to this point. So Primordial is an Irish Celtic folk / black metal band that formed in the early 90s. Part of the big Irish black metal scene, along with other bands that followed the black metal and folk metal lines like Cruachan and other bands, Male Morda, even though they're more folk doom. But the folk, Celtic folk inspirations definitely flow through a lot of Irish folk, Irish black metal, Irish doom metal bands, what have you. But Primordial was arguably the biggest of them all, sans Cruachan, but Primordial definitely the one that more people know about. And of course, over the years, they've garnered quite a fan base in the underground, going through whether it be just straight up black metal with the Celtic folk influence, or, as we're going to talk about on this, a little more epic Celtic folk black metal and some epic doom thrown into the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And also, just to go to show you how big they eventually became, they eventually signed to Metal Blade Records.
Mm-hmm.
Which is quite something, and this was a Metal Blade release. There's the blade right there. 2007, this album came out, during a time where, in the mainstream sense, metalcore was the big thing going at the time.
Might I add a bit of curiosity for them? The first album that Primordial released under the Metal Blade album was 2005's The Gathering Wilderness.
And what year would that have been?
2005. I mentioned 2005.
Oh.
To the Nameless Dead came out 2 years later in 2007.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So we're here to discuss this album because I know Hannah and Artur in particular love this album. Ricky and I, we were late bloomers with this. And one of the funniest moments in the history of this show, when we did the top 10 folk metal albums, and I had To the Nameless Dead at number 5, and Hannah and Artur was killed on stream. Essentially.
Yeah.
And I could see Hannah still is not. No, she still hasn't forgiven me for putting Satanist at number 7 when we did the albums of the 2010s, where I killed everybody in that sense. Well, I don't know which is. I don't know which is more.
Ricky did a whole lot worse with the Satanist.
I wonder which is more unforgivable to Hannah, the Satanist, To the Nameless Dead, or having Ghost prequel at number 4 in my 2018 albums.
Ghost, certainly.
Ghost is worse.
Hey, if I really wanted to be a dick, I would have had at number 1, but I knew better than that.
But I had a number 3, so that's
exactly.
even worse.
That's even worse.
Yeah, but Levi, dear old Levi, mentioned it first.
Anyway.
Oh boy.
It's like, come on, give me a break. That was my first Ghost album, but what have you.
And the worst.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But yes, back on track. So, To the Nameless Dead by Primordial. So, 2007, Metal Blade, 8-track affair, almost an hour. You got a lot of long songs on this particular album. So, best way to begin is to talk about the opening track, Empire Falls.
Nope. And what about how we got into
Primordial? How we got into Primordial. Well, for me, it was actually thanks to you guys, because I always heard the name Primordial, but I never dove into their music until coming across you guys. And I always saw interviews with Alan, like on Beelzebub documentaries, and it'd be funny or serious at times, talking about black metal and death metal, and probably more infamously on one of the Beelzebub's metal retardation movies he did. They did this funny joke with him and the other members of Primordial, like, hey, can we give a middle finger for Corpse Grinder? As like, hey, we love you, George. Because, especially in those Beelzebub movies, he likes to pick on Corpse Grinder for not singing Mary Had a Little Lamb. But we'll get into that later on. But so, yeah, that's how I got into Primordial, was through everybody here. Ricky.
Well, I got into Primordial thanks to Hannah and Artur. It was the first dry run that we did before we started created this show. It was the first time we actually talked, to be honest. And I want to say was, if my memory serves me, late May, early June 2018 was the first dry run we did. We started knowing each other. We talked about bands, and then Primordial came into the picture, and I was like, who's Primordial? Both Hannah and Artur looked at me with a face of like, what the hell you know what Primordial was? So they told me, after we finished talking, they told me, you got to listen to Primordial. And I told them, what album? To the Nameless Dead, of course. So I did that, and I've been a Primordial fan ever since. And yeah, that's my story.
All right, Artur.
Oh boy. I had already heard about Primordial for some time, and some of the songs that I heard first weren't exactly from To the Nameless Death. It was actually Where Greater Men Had Fallen, and also Babel's Tower, which was their 2014's album. But the point that I truly became a Primordial fan was after one of my best friends called Melissa. Yes, though, don't start with any merciful fate jokes or what have you.
Oh man!
But whatever. This was back in 2015, 2014, 2015, and this was the first year that I went to this underground festival called Under the Doom, which was hosted here in Portugal. I think I posted sometimes some of the builds for those. They had bands that they have brought in bands such as Paradise Lost. They brought in Lacuna Coil, which was a more weird left field sort of, but they also brought in Paradise Lost and so many others. And this one year they brought in Primordial. I wasn't going to that festival, and then all of a sudden Melissa pushed me to go. I went, and the live show that they put in, which is always one of the biggest advantages of Primordial, is their live shows, made me a fan on that very same day. And I actually got to the Nameless Death at a Fnac shop, which is the big media conglomerate where you can buy tech, video games, and also books and CDs. I think Hannah has also some of them in Germany, I guess. Fnac shops, they're French, but whatever. And I actually found my copy of To the Nameless Death there. It only costed me about 17 euros, and right from the first power chords of Empire's Fall, I mean, as I said, I was already a Primordial knower or connoisseur, so to say, but with that show, To the Nameless Death, and even with some of the other albums that I got to listen before, like Storm Before Calm, and even Spirit the Earth of Flame, which was 2000 album, I became a fan of them instantly.
All right, and Hannah.
For me, it also started with this album, Where Greater Men Have Fallen, which came out in 2014. And when I listened to the Babel's Tower for the first time, it just clicked immediately. And when the album came out, I mean, there are so many awesome songs on there. And then I went back. I had heard of Primordial before, mostly because of bands like Falkenbach, who also play this kind of folky black metal, but hadn't really listened to Primordial properly before. And after discovering Where Greater Men Had Fallen, I went back, and I think one of the first songs I listened to from the back catalog was now I'm missing the song title, Heathen Tribes. And since I love everything that has to do with paganism and heathenism and the ancient past of Europe and the different tribes and so on, it clicked immediately, because the lyrics of this one are just pagan worship at its best. And then I listened to the rest of
BRB.
listen to the rest of the Nameless Dead, and it just immediately made sense. And I wanted to see them live for quite a while. Didn't work out, and then finally in 2018, when they released their latest album, Exile Amongst the Ruins, they came to Cologne for an album release show. So they hadn't played the songs live before of that album, and I simply went there, and oh my god! I mean, Primordial, they certainly have to be one of the best live bands there is. It's just, especially because of Alan, he's just such an energetic singer, and he just grips you, and you're just so mesmerized by everything that happens in front of the stage. His vocals live are even better than on the records themselves, and everything in between. It's just so amazing. And then when they played as Rome Burns from the album To the Nameless Dead, and I was just standing there in the front row and suddenly felt a hand on my head, and I looked up, and it was Alan.
It happened to me as well.
and I looked up, and he was like, inches away from my face and singing, and I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" and that was one of the.
I can share a part of the story as well, but this one was at a more recent show, which was not so much. Yeah, I felt that once again that his hand on as Rome Burns, but the last song of that show was Empire's Fall, and all of a sudden he says, as the where's the fighting man? Have I here? You will tell every truth. And then all of a sudden he points the mic at me, and I knew the song, and I knew Empire's Fall, and all of a sudden I say, "For Hollow Victory," and all of a sudden I could not believe it, because he was pointing the microphone at me and two more guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I could not believe it.
That's awesome.
He did that.
That's awesome.
That when they played as Rome Burns during the sing to the slaves chants, and he also point the mic in my direction, and then I just had to steal the set list, and it's somewhere I haven't actually found it.
Yes,
But
you
it's
have
somewhere.
it. Which okay.
I have mine as well. It is on my dossier.
And I mean, without doubt, that they are one of the most energetic live bands I've ever seen, in the same league as bands like Rotting Christ and Ministry. So far, those have been few of the best live bands that I've seen. And I mean, if you should ever get the chance to see them, do it. Go and see Alan.
Here.
Mm-hmm.
Primordial. If you're watching this, Alan, please make a US tour, please. I mean,
It is difficult. It is difficult because I've heard from Alan, but this wasn't any talks. I heard from several interviews that for some time, Alan never believed that Primordial would get as big as it got. He always considered Primordial kind of a second job. They have their jobs. Each one of the members of Primordial, they have their own jobs, but Alan himself never believed that this would get big as it got. He said that this was like a second job to him. But now, I'm sorry, Alan, but Primordial, even if it is in the underground, but it's better than mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
Most certainly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And on top of that, you look at where they are now, still on Metal Blade, so kudos to Brian Slagle for picking up this band when you did in the mid-2000s. But real quick before we get into the album discussion, we gotta play the typical Metallum game, but we'll do it for Primordials, so to kind of give also the audience an idea of like other bands that you could compare Primordial to. So the top 5 bands compared to Primordial. So at number 5, we have Solstafir from Iceland.
It's a bit weird.
Appropriate. Yeah.
It is a bit weird. More of the early stuff, I guess, for Solstafir.
But it's a bit appropriate.
But number 4, Enslaved.
That I understand.
That makes a bit sense.
Number 3, Moon Sorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Number 2, Melmorda.
Obviously. That's too obvious.
And number 1, Bathory.
I mean, late Bastard, of course.
Yeah,
I mean,
like Hammerhard through to the Nordland albums. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of gives you an idea of what kind of company this band is a part of. But now on to the album discussion, and we kick things
cover.
off. Yeah, with the
with
cover.
the album cover. Which the album cover is a bit odd. I mean, I don't know. It's a statue, of course, but we don't know if this is a Roman
It's a flag.
statue. I mean, yeah, but if you look at the back, you have the statue, but I'm not sure if it's a Greek statue, Roman statue. It looks more.
I can guess. I can guess that this representation, this statue, it's kind of a sort of a representation of what today we consider the Republic figure. I mean, the laurel crown on the head, the flag. Here in I don't know if in Germany they have something similar, but here in Portugal we have our representation, artists in the arts of the Republic. It is a bit like this: a woman with a laurel crown, with a laurel crown with kind of a toga, robe on it, and with a flag. Which can be a bit.
We used to have that with Germania with the suit of armor and so on, a bit more warrior-esque.
Ours is not. Ours is more Roman, in caps, or Roman, because of the with the ropes, with the toga.
Yep. So you can say it's a bit more of a Roman-esque statue, like as representing the Republic.
I mean, it would certainly fit some of the lyrics on the album.
Well, for all we know, it could be an Irish thing. Could be a statue from Ireland, maybe their heritage.
Yeah. Boudica, maybe a Boudica as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's some alternative covers that were later on pressed in later releases. I think there's one where they have the full statue on the album cover, and I think there was some concept art that didn't make it in the actual album, which looks interesting, but again, and not to mention the background. We have all like the buildings after a war or something already all demolished. Again, a demolished city, but yet the Republic still stands.
There is one. I'm seeing here one of the alternative covers, which is kind of the cover to set the spirit of the Earth aflame, which is kind of a thorns with a torch in the middle and two skulls on the side. Yeah. And I'm seeing here the one that you said, that figure no longer wearing that crown, that laurel crown, throwing it away and still holding the flag in hand.
Yeah, like I said, it could be, like I said, a demolished city with the statue still standing strong, which represents, even though the city is demolished, the Republic, their foundations are still intact.
Mm-hmm.
And Levi, I think you muted yourself.
No, I'm fine.
Oh, okay. Oh, never mind. I thought you muted yourself because I didn't hear you. But yeah. Like I said, great album cover. It kind of stands out. It's kind of a bit of a, and also the colors.
Even the booklet itself, which still stayed with all of the. I found mine and it's signed. I forgot about this.
Yeah,
still has all the.
Yeah,
still has the members. It has some of the it has, of course, the song, the lyrics of the song, and some notes on the very end for. I don't know if they were written by Alan or written by any of the members, but the booklet is still a part of that same cover, which still has the same colors, and it still has one, which is near the end before the credits, and the last one, which is all the primordial members on the distant horizon, where you can only see their shadows as well. And before they gave the credits, some people watching the destroyed floor or cave floor. The CD itself, it has a bit of a folk or even pagan influence to it, because most of the drawings that you see on the CD itself, probably this would be something that you would see on a Viking longship, or even on a Viking shield, especially on a Viking shield as well.
At first I thought they were dragons. They kind of look like a dragon, but as I look more close into the album, it looks like maybe like a wolf in a way, but like, of course, a skeleton wolf, which I think it's a folklore,
or in a way a gremlin.
Which which again, I think there's a folklore related to the wolves in Ireland, and I don't know. I mean, it's vast in their history. I mean, of course, you're gonna put your own. You're gonna put your history to the album.
I mean, in most. Something connected to the wolves. You have Romulus and Remus in Rome. There's always in ancients in the Heathen Tribes, as Hannah says. a sacred figure for those tribes.
I just hello. I just like that it says in the credits, not very produced by Primordial and Chris Fielding. It's just so funny. And
also
it's a bit the Joker.
And also, I read in the thanks list, Alan says, "Hey Satan, I'm living in a rockin' band."
Hey Satan, I paid my dues playing in a rockin' band.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I mean, but that's always a bit the Joker side of Alan. He has always been this. This
goofball. Again, there's this thing. Artwork design and layout by Paul McCarroll. He was hindered in the process by Alan.
So with that said, now let's talk about the songs on the album. So we have 8 songs, 7 full songs, 1 instrumental. And the album goes almost an hour. So it's a pretty long album. So if you got the patience to go through it all in one sitting, give it a go. And we kick things off with the song Empire Falls. Now, one thing I notice a lot on this album... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, one thing I noticed...
was going to say that right from... God damn. Go ahead.
I was going to say, the one thing I notice a lot on this album is that, especially with the drums, it tends to follow this kind of... how do I put it? Like, like it follows a certain groove that I really like on a lot of songs.
I mean, your typical drums throughout this album are not really so much black metal influence. Even there's one song in the album that's so black metal, but I'm going to talk about it later. But the drums in Empire Falls are more like, I want to say like, marching, like the troops are marching.
Yeah,
that's
marching
what
groove.
I'm thinking of. Yeah, like marching groove. Yeah, like it's a song. Empire Falls, of course, talks about again when every empire falls, from the Roman Empire to the Egyptians to the Greeks. Even if you want to say recent empires have fallen at one time, but still, it's the people.
Ours here in Portugal, we had our own empire, and it fell.
Yeah, I mean,
we fell plenty of times.
I mean, anyway, every empire is not immortal. There's a time that every empire will eventually fall, but it's the foundations of the people and the beliefs of the Republic that sometimes those empires still stand to this day. Like one of the empires that always fascinated me was the Greek empires. The Greek Empire, of course, you got the gods, that they brought so much mathematics to the world, a lot of like aristocracy and all that just philosophy. Gave a lot philosophy, of course,
cultural heritage.
Like I said, even though the Greek Empire fell, the foundations are still there. So technically, it's not fallen physically; it fell, but spiritually, it still stands.
You could say that for most of the empires that we had. I mean, Romans. If you want to talk about especially the Roman Empire and spoil a little bit to As Rome Burns, spoiled. I mean, besides the Greek Empire, the other empire here in Europe that had plenty of influence was the Romans. I mean, they took over most of Europe. They took over most of Europe and for most of the countries,
parts of Africa.
Yeah, North Africa.
Yeah, and Turkey as well, and even Turkey.
And I mean, they most of the UK, and even most of what was then known as Germanic tribal country, the Gaels. And everything.
We cannot say the same. We cannot say the same for what was once Lusitania. It was taken over by the Celts, but in the most treacherous way. But that's a story for another time. But their influence stayed. Most of the southern European countries, they have their common roots, which is one of the examples, the Latin roots. That's why Portuguese can understand Spanish, we can understand French, and we can understand a little bit of Italian as well.
And I mean, we all use the same alphabet. That's also one of the things that came with the Romans. Not so much numbers, but alphabet, pretty important. And I mean, even in other European languages, like in German, we have lots of Latin influences.
But that's the gist of what Ricky was to say. Where were the fighting men? They are here, but that's a hollow. But they would take every truth for a hollow victory. I mean, every empire has to fall. No empire stays forever. But what they brought us, if they're not twisted or used for their own profit, that's all. For all their profits, I mean, church. They would. All the pieces are there. We just have to know how to use them.
Yeah.
And avoid repeating the mistakes of it.
And I also like the fact that each song, if you have the booklet, has like a little summary at the very end, which I'm gonna read.
Yeah.
Which I'm gonna read it right now. I stand up this earth, but for the blood of my ancestors, men and women who made massive, selfless sacrifices in their lives. The machine that grinds the wheels would have you sedated, plagued, confused, designated, distracted while they sell your culture, trade your history, and crush your empathy with enduring will of the human spirit. When I walk the streets of towns and cities all over the world, I see statues of long dead men and women. Their voices among rising up, imploring me, mocking and standing guard over the centuries. Where is your fight? Is it for that we did? Is it for that we died?
In part, that's also a bit of a jab towards the EU.
Yes,
because in part that's a jab to the EU.
I mean, not just the EU, but everywhere in the world, basically.
Yeah.
So Empire Falls. Oh, phenomenal opener. But then it leads into my favorite song of the album, Gallows Hymn. And we talk about and we talk a lot about how we mostly like to compare this song to, say, Hallowed Be Thy Name by Iron Maiden in terms of like the lyrical content and the idea behind it. And you start out with this like soft bass tone before it gets into the clean guitars, and then it gets really epic. And this would probably be like the big epic doom song of the album.
Because this is a bit slower. It's a bit much of a slower song, and it builds
very atmospheric.
Of course, you have Paul first at the bass, dun dun dun, and you have then Clarendon and Michael joining in, and then of course you have at the very end Simon, and then you have, of course, Alan singing. The thing about this song... Go ahead.
In a way, the lyrics say everything. You can almost feel, just like with Hallowed Be Thy Name, when it starts with, I'm waiting in my cold cell, that he's writing his own will. In Gallows Hymn, although it only has three structures of the face, I'll read them. Sister, do not pray for me. There's no forgiveness here. Just the longest, darkest night and my people's end. Brother, many a crooked day we spend telling tales and marking myths, sharpening our tongues for our final fight, yet doing little but growing old. I never was a religious man, so why should I put my faith in you? You burned your bridges a long time ago, and Ricky's favorite phrase, I'm a heathen searching for his soul. It says everything.
And the thing about the song compared to the rest of the album, it seems as in Alan is preaching in a way. He's preaching this song. It's not your typical black metal traditional singing. He's like telling you the story. And when I listen to the song, I think if Primordial were to release a music video, which I'm shocked that none of the songs in this album were ever a single, Gallows Hymn will be the first one that I would pick as a single because I have the perfect concept. Of course, we have Alan being the one being hanged. I will imagine Alan being in his cell at night, looking at the window, and knows that by dawn he will be executed. As the sun picks up, go ahead.
Or even in his cell, watching the ghosts of his sister or his brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As the song goes on, of course, he's giving his last rites, the typical execution thing. And when the executioner or the priest asks him, "What are your final words?" In that moment, Alan begins to sing the lyrics. He begins to sing the lyrics. And of course, when it says sister and brother, it could be both, as in his biological brother and sister, or it could be us.
Brothers in arms.
Sisters. Exactly. It could be us. It could be the common man, brother, sister. And then when he starts singing, the heathens, when he starts to sing, "I'm not a religious man," he looks up at the sky and looks like he's like telling God off. He's like, "I was never a religious man. Why should I ever put my faith in you? You burned your bridges long time ago. I'm a heathen searching for a soul." The song ends. The executioner kills him. And you just see the feet dangling there. I mean, in my mind, that's almost like Valhalla be the name, but more epic, more meaningful, more just so good. I'm like, I can talk about this song the whole day.
Pitch it to it.
We all could.
And I swear, if Primordial later on does this,
they better owe you a royalty check.
Or at least I will be fine, at least in the credits, at least as creditor.
I would say if they go with the idea that I said, him on his cell seeing his brother or his sister as ghosts, I want some of that as well.
Yeah, but again, my favorite song of the entire album just.
Mm-hmm. So then that brings us to the longest song of the album, As Rome Burns, over 9 minutes of bliss.
All right, Hannah.
9 minutes, 16 seconds, more precise.
Sing to the slaves.
Sing to the slaves as Rome burns.
It is a bit of a historical. I mean, it is a bit historical because Rome did burn. I mean, some people say it was
Nero.
Exactly. Some people say it was the Christians. Some people say it was a slaves' revolt, but it did burn. Even Alan, when he does that best part, sing to the slaves as Rome burns, it feels like he's starting an uprising. I mean,
a revolution.
It starts slow, but then gradually it picks up until that final shout, "Sing to the slaves as Rome burns," which is the beginning of that uprising.
And I love Paul's drumming at the beginning. Sounds more like not marching, but more of a liberating of the slaves. Like, this is the slaves' theme. Like, we're finally free. Like, no more enslavement. We're screw you, Emperor Nero. We know Nero was a bit fucked up in the brain.
Yeah.
I don't know who was worse, Nero, Tiberius, or Caligula. Those three.
I don't know, but Caligula was a bit worse because of the murders that he committed.
Well, yeah, and Nero's, I think, his nephew. So I think Nero was the last emperor in the whole Caesar line. After that, I think he started moving away from the Caesar lineage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, I'm I am jealous that Hannah and Artur have had the opportunity for Alan to put their hand on their head and sing it as Ron Burns.
I was so fucking surprised when that happened.
As well.
And again,
And,
this could be
and
a
what, here one thing that Alan or other says really on the it's the last sentence of his notes. Mm-hmm. We are fiddling and Rome is about to be set ablaze.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Nero that's fiddling, it's the slaves or the Christians, however you want to call it. They are fiddling and they are preparing for revolts.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is just to show how much Alan is a bit of a history buff. I mean, the whole band is a history buff. I mean, that's why I love this album, because it talks about historical events. And maybe in a history nerd, makes it even better. I can get the reference. I know what they're talking about.
So then,
as
after As Rome Burns, we get to probably one of the more somber songs of the album, Failure's Burden.
Actually, if I may add something, on the vinyl, that is the fifth song. The fifth and the fourth are reversed, but anyway.
Yeah.
Really? I wonder why.
Probably because Heathen Tribes is so long and it didn't fit on the first
on the rest of the side.
Okay.
But yeah, Failure's Burden, whenever I heard this one, it's almost on the same level as Gallows Hymn in terms of the atmosphere and the more sad side or somber side
and the depth of the lyrics as well.
Yeah,
probably the most saddest song of the album, in a way.
Yeah, anytime you have a song that has to do with like burdens and stuff, it tends to have that more somber atmosphere. I mean, it's kind of like apples and oranges, but I would compare this song to a song like Burden by Opeth in terms of like the lyric meanings about like how you feel like no matter what you do in life, everything's a burden to you, and no matter what you do, it seems to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like you got no way out of it. And that's kind of the vibe I get from listening to this song.
I mean, I simply love how it starts basically with the line, "Days drift and I rise to the cold sun. I was born an old child, with no place for faith in my heart." And just the way this starts in combination with the somber music, and the development, it kind of takes throughout the entire song
which is a big contrast to the other song that we are going to talk about in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to ask Anna one thing about Gallows Hymn. Whenever I saw Primordial live, they never played the Gallows Hymn live, at least here in Portugal.
They didn't play it in Cologne as well. No. The thing is, they played almost the entire album, Exile Amongst the Ruins, because it was the album release show. They only played very few songs of other albums, and one of the few lucky ones was As Rome Burns, but no other songs from that album. I think maybe Empire Falls, but I can't really remember. But not Gallows Hymns.
Yeah, but also the very end of the song, "Every man is evil, every man a liar, and every word he speaks kindling to the fire."
That line is fucking great.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
And also the way his vocals develop throughout the course of the song. I mean, they start out a bit more quiet, a bit more calm, and then just the way he screams that last line into the mic, it's just so raw and so mesmerizing. And I mean, the entire album only consists of first and second tracks. It's so raw and so energetic and so fresh and not overproduced, and that's lovely. Yeah.
Now that you brought that up, Hannah, that's another thing that I wanted to mention.
It's so organic.
The majority of this album was first takes. You know how hard that is to go into a studio, sing the vocals, and get the majority of the lyrics in one take?
And that just shows how amazing they are.
I mean, Alan is probably one of the most underrated vocalists in the underground. I mean, come on. I mean, the guy can sing you to death, can make you cry, can make you jump,
He can do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, tell me another band who has done an album in 1 to 2 takes. You rarely get it.
No,
you can't. You can't.
No.
I mean, there are moments. There are a couple of moments in time. You're in the moment and you just let all that energy.
Yeah. I mean, the only band that I can think of that can pull off something like that is Midnight. But I mean, the music itself is pretty raw and energetic. But in the case of Primordial, I mean, to think that a band with such complicated compositions and complex lyrical meaning could do something like that. It's just mesmerizing and insane.
Yeah. The only 2 examples I can think of, and it's not album, but it's mostly songs. The one example, 2. The first one, the spoken chant in "O Father of Satan, No Son," that was done in 1 take.
Yeah.
And the second one was the chanting in Jihad from Slayer. It was in 1 take. That's like the only 2 examples I can think of. Like 1 take, perfect take. After that, try to do it again.
Yeah, also another one, the famous Scream and Angel of Death by Slayer. That was 1 take as well.
Mm-hmm.
especially if you combine that with Wham's Last Christmas.
Although this has nothing to do with it, but there's also another song that was done in 1 take. "The Show Must Go On" by Queen. Because they said all the time that even though Freddie Mercury was not in his best shape because of the AIDS, he still did the whole song in that tone in 1 take. Another example.
Like I said, it's rare when the first take is the 1 take, because after that you try to do it again and you hear it and it doesn't sound the same as the first take. You can add to it, but it's just not the same. And this goes for the entire album. First to 2 takes, so it's a masterpiece. But I don't know. I'm getting over myself. We still need to talk about the rest of the songs.
Yeah, so that's half of the album. Now we got the second half, and it begins. And I know, Artur, you and Hannah are just aching to talk about
my
Heathen
favorite
Tribes.
song. My favorite song of the album.
The sort of a mandolin introduction says everything about Heathen Tribes. I mean, even the explanation that Alan gives, this hardly needs an explanation. And if you read the lyrics, you would understand. Over the years, we have been places we would never have got to or met people we would have never have because of Primordial. This is because, in a way, the fans, they could be considered the Heathen Tribes. This is our homage, our simple anthem to you all. There are so many places I could have mentioned in the lyrics, but they are all in spirit. Take it for what it is, and we respect the men. I mean, they say Sintra. Sintra is us, is here in Portugal. They say Flanders. They say Athena, which is Athens. Teutoburg.
Teutoburg, that's the one that really touches me, because I've been at the Teutoburg forest, at the ancient battlefields where the Germans or the Germanic tribes led by Herman the German, or Arminius in this case, fought against the Romans and actually beat them. One of the only few times in history that the native people of Europe, or not Roman Europe, beat the Romans. And I've been on the big statue of Herman the German, and it still points towards France. How ironic!
But heathen tribes, to put it mildly, so to say, in a way, it is a song that Primordial wrote mostly to say thank you to their fans.
I think it's a nice mixture of honoring and thanking the fans, but also kind of remembering the ancient past of Europe because of all the historic locations and people and places and ancient and old names and so on. And even the way the song starts, the way it kind of talks about the land being the church. So like most heathen and pagan religions honored the nature and not one spiritual being, and and then the way it evolves to this kind of hymn about Europe and the fans and the ancient places. It's just so lovely.
It is.
And I want to add, this is probably the happiest song of the album.
Yeah.
The folkiest.
The folkiest. And I like the way that it starts with the mantra. It makes me want to clap. I can just imagine people like.
And we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, it makes you like pumped up, like. I just love clapping to that song, like. I don't know why, I just feel like clapping to that song.
Grab a flagon of mead, drink, and dance.
I'm always dancing whenever I listen to that one.
Hey, America's Got Talent, put that song in. You'll get a lot of more views. Trust me.
Maybe a contestant who listens to that song will do it.
Ricky, you have to do a modified version of this one with states of the US instead of European location.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
That would have been better. Yeah.
So then after Heathen Tribes, we get the short 90-second instrumental transition song, The Rising Tide. Which is a really nice transitional song to get into the penultimate song of the album, and another one of my favorites, Traitor's Gate. And whenever you look at the lyrics, like, let me get... I swear some jewel cases, like the CD holders, break too easily, but... Because I've been struggling trying to keep that thing closed without it being hard to open. But,
Resurrect that as king!
Yeah.
And I want to say, this is the blackiest song of the entire album.
Probably the most black metal oriented song of the album.
I mean, it's like almost you want to sound almost like it could be sounding like gun bullets. Like, I mean, machine guns. Sword. I'm not gonna go that way. I'm not gonna go.
I mean, Ulva also did a song about Nero.
Yeah. But they also did about Julius Caesar.
Yeah.
Yep.
And about peacock feathers.
Oh boy.
Flowers and feathers. But anyway, back to Traitor's Gate. Again, the most black metal song of the album. And I don't know, I mean, the tyrant has erected a king whose men is such an iron fist, and all the world proclaiming yesterday's man's a traitor, yet welcome with open arms his brother as tomorrow's dictator.
Yeah.
I mean,
because it's true, but now putting it into a more historical motive or historical sentence, Traitor's Gate would always be named after one gate at the castle, which was, as it was known, where all the traitors would go in, and would be the first ones to come out. And also, not few were the cases here throughout Europe that these trader gates were actually used to bring in enemy forces to invade such castles.
And again, Trader's Gate is kind of like the opposite of Empire Falls. As in Empire Falls, it's about the Republic. This one's more about dictatorship when, of course, we have Tywin resurrected as king. The traitor is now in power. I mean, throughout history, we've seen so many traitors rise to power. I mean, you can go to Germany, of course. I mean, the German, what happened? You know,
we had one. We had one as well.
In Portugal, I mean, and also in Argentina, in Brazil,
Spain.
basically in Brazil,
Spain.
Brazil. I mean, everywhere. I mean, like some traders, for better or worse, get into power and just run a mockery of destruction. And
I mean,
you know,
what about now?
Not so different.
I mean, what's the difference? Yeah, I mean, you can say right now. I mean, this was written in 2007. This record, I mean, even that song Trader's Gate represents in a way right now. I mean, if you know what we're talking about, go to the news. But yeah, I mean,
Just listen to Iced Earth and you will know everything.
Oh boy!
Oh God! Here we go.
Moving on.
I still like Iced Earth. I won't blame the entire band for the idiocy of one man.
Yeah, but anyway, back to Trader's Gate.
I'm sorry.
But again, the opposite of Empire's Fall, in a way.
Yeah.
Just great song.
And then we reach the conclusion, No Nation on This Earth. Which is probably the second most somber song of the album behind Gallows Hymn.
Which mostly talks about the nations itself, borders, and even which talks about the nations itself, borders, the desert of the seas. And even it says here, some nations and peoples seem born as grist for the mill of empires. People of all nations on this earth are born of tragedy. People's blood, sweat, and tears within concrete and steel of empires, within the very soil itself, they lay claim over. Basically, what it means is that there is no nation on this earth that hasn't been made with these three words. With blood, with the blood of the people, with the sweat of their work, and the tears of their efforts.
Yeah.
And actually, this song, it took me a while to get into, because this is like the oddest song on the entire album.
Yeah.
It's a grower. Yeah, I mean, over the years, I've been into love it more. But at first, I kind of feel this was different than the rest of the album. Like, it doesn't have that same feeling as the entire album. But again, this is the final track. It had to end, I guess, in a more what's the word I'm looking for? More of a I guess a summary, like a summary of the entire album in a way. But
yeah, the thing is, the entire album is so strong, and then this one's kind of the forgotten song because it isn't as catchy. I mean, the thing is, when we talked about doing this episode, and I was re-listening to the album, I always get surprised, no matter how often I listen to this album, how good the last track actually is, because I always forget how good it actually is.
Yeah.
And,
Had they ever played that song live? Have they ever played Notion on this earth live?
As far as I know, no.
I mean, I would really like them to play the entire album in one go.
I mean,
that would be awesome.
I mean, it's possible. Like I said, it could happen eventually.
I mean, I've said so often, like, if Amon Amarth would ever play Twilight of the Thunder God in its entirety, I mean, Primordial could easily do that with To the Nameless Dead.
There is one song in the Primordial set that I want to listen live in. It is the song that we all love. I would give the €1,000 each. If I won the lottery, I would give them €1,000 each to every member of the band, so they could play Gallows Hymn live.
Mm-hmm. and make it more theatrical. If they're gonna do it, they're gonna go all the way. Make it theatrical, like Alice Cooper style.
Yeah.
I mean,
they probably would have to go to Alice for advice on like how to do the hangman's noose without actually getting hung.
Yeah,
but I've seen. But there's one thing. I've seen Primordial live, and at one time he came out with a hangman's noose, just like when Bruce Dickinson, just like when Bruce Dickinson came out with the hangman's noose in the Hallowed Be Thy Name. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is possible.
It is possible, but again, the last track is one of the forgotten tracks, and like Hannah said, every time I listen to this album, I always think that after Traitor's Gate, the album is finished. And then this pops out, and I'm like, all right, there's this one song left. Amazing track, but again, the oddest song of the song, great song, but I don't know. And this is like...
Yeah, it's a bit of...
This is the fourth longest song at 8 minutes, 11 seconds. Mm-hmm. Yep. Maybe it's because it's a bit more slower when it starts.
Yeah, and I think it's the least energetic out of all of them.
No Nation on This Earth has about the same time as Empire Falls.
Yeah, but then Empire Falls is a really fucking fantastic opener, and
yes, it is.
It's energetic. And the thing is, I mean, even if they would ever play most of the songs of the Nameless to the Nameless Dead live, I'm not sure if this one would actually, if the last track would actually work live, because I mean it lacks energy in contrast to the other song. It's still a fantastic song.
I mean, you never know. Yeah. I mean, maybe Alan live can. I know I listen to an energetic guy. Maybe he could he could pull it off.
Yeah, Alan would most certainly be able to do that, but will they? That's the question.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, this is like the second.
Most likely they will play Gallows Hymn live first, and they will play No Nation on This Earth.
Well, I mean, like I said, I don't know.
Who knows?
But again, phenomenal song. But again, the forgotten song of the album.
What an album!
Yeah.
Dare I say that No Nation on This Earth might be Primordial's escape?
Yeah. You can say
that. As a forgotten song?
Yeah.
Yeah, but there are so many songs that are forgotten.
I'm pretty sure somebody out there in the world, this is their favorite song. Which I'm not gonna deny it. Yeah. I'm not gonna deny it. It is a great song, but someone out there in the world, No Nation on This Earth is their favorite song on the album, which I can respect that. I mean, you never know.
So overall, To the Nameless Dead, a modern folk black metal classic. Mm-hmm. I mean, hell, we all had it on our folk metal albums lists. Some of you guys had at number 1, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
So,
true.
It goes to show you...
And a lot of us, regarding the top 10 albums of the 2000s, it was pretty high in some of our lists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very unanimous.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So now comes the big question. Since that was the second album discussion we've done, what are we going to do for a third? Because we've done The Mantle, we've done To the Nameless Dead.
The Satanist.
Yeah, I would think the Satanist.
Yeah,
would
the
be
Satanist.
The next
one. So, favorite songs from the album. Top 3.
Oh, yeah.
Easy. Gallows Hymn, Empire Falls, Heathen Tribes. I'm sorry, although I can put 3A, Heathen Tribes, 3B, as Rome Burns.
For me, Gallows Hymn, Empire Falls. Shit! I'm between Rome Burns and Traitor's Gate, but you know what? I'm gonna give it to Rome Burns.
Gallows Hymn, Empire Falls, Traitor's Gate.
Heathen Tribes, Gallows Hymns, and As Rome Burns.
There you go. So now,
I mean, it's. But for those that want to listen to Primordial, don't just listen to those, because this album, in my opinion, I don't know if you share it, it is as close to perfect as it could be. I mean, yeah, No Nation on this earth might be a bit weird, but it still has some consensus to it. It is as close to a perfect album as you would have. There is almost no bad song on this album. Might be some weird ones, songs that would think, "What is this? The same thing?" or after. So this is, but if you want an introduction to or would you recommend this album to anyone who wants to start off with Primordial? Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
As I would recommend Spirit, the Earth, the Flame, The Gathering Wilderness, and also Where Greater Men Have Fallen. But
I mean, if I could recommend single songs out of the discography that would kind of fit to the Nameless Dead vibes, it is certainly the Coffin Ships, which is a fucking amazing song.
Yeah.
And basically from Where Greater Men Have Fallen, Babel's Tower, and Weird Lightning to Split the Sun. If you like, especially if you like Heathen Tribes, the later one is for you. Gods to the godless.
and to think that this album came out in 2007, it's still relevant to this day. To think about it.
Highly.
And again, 2007, this was the time that black metal began to rise up again. Even though Primordial is not really, it's Celtic folk black metal. This was next to The Gathering Wilderness. This was their biggest hit.
And this was in the year that it gave us Dream Theater, Systematic Chaos, Machine Head's The Blackening, Silent Waters by Amorphous, and Land of Gamma Ray. So it means that it was in strong competition.
Yeah, it was, and this was, like I said, this was the most underground album of 2007. I think in some metal magazines they put this at number 1. I could be wrong, but again, amazing album, ahead of its time. Again, 2007, we're still talking about it almost 14 years later.
And I mean, if you look on Metallum, it has an 89% rating out of 12 reviews. That's fucking.
Yeah.
I thought it was. I thought for To the Nameless Dead it was 98%.
Maybe they changed.
I screwed up the numbers. 98. Sorry.
Yeah, that's on the same par as an album like Left Hand Path by Entombed on Metallum. Like that's also a 98% average.
And unlike the Mantle, when we talk about that, the Mantle was a sleeper in the early 2000s. Everybody was interested in the Nameless Dead. That they went to the record stores, they got the album, and it sold a lot of copies, and they still do. I mean, I think this is their biggest album that they're selling. I could be wrong. It could be The Gathering Wilderness, maybe, but
I'd say that it's between this one, Where Greater Men Have Fallen, or The Gathering Wilderness. It's one of these three.
Yeah. And this was again 2007. This is again the rebirth of black metal after what happened in Norway. People were starting to listen to black metal again, and this was a ream of fresh air. People were like interested in Primordial. They were big fans. And again, I think Primordial is the second biggest band to come out of Ireland next to Thin Lizzy. I could be wrong.
Remember, there is Cruachan as well.
But Cruachan came before Primordial.
Yeah.
But in terms of success, which one's more, Primordial or Cruachan?
Primordial is more successful.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for this episode. A reminder for our next episode, whenever that happens, hopefully by the end of the month, we'll be back. We're gonna, oh boy, it's gonna get difficult. Top 10 albums of the 90s.
And very dicey.
Yeah, because there were so many great albums that came out in the 90s. During a decade where a lot of the mainstream tried to claim, because of grunge, metal was dead. No, it wasn't. Metal went back to the underground where it should be. And more subgenres emerged.
Back to the roots.
And it was the decade of the subgenre emergence. Like, you had death metal growing, you had black metal growing, you had grindcore kind of falling down a little bit by the middle of the decade. You had the rise of prog metal, you had the rise of folk metal.
New metal.
Stoner metal.
Stoner, you had the... You had the rise of gothic metal. You had, of course, melodeath. Groove metal was big during the time, thanks to Pantera.
Early folk metal.
Basically, the 90s was the genesis of what we have right now.
Although folk metal is basically from the 2000s.
Yeah, but early bands like Falkenbach and so were pioneering in that.
And Skyclad, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
next early Ulver with Quellensager to mention Ulver again.
And again, the first three Ulver albums.
But Ulver, most people would put it in the black metal category.
Again, they're not really black metal.
Yeah, they are everything else.
Was Enslaved.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that will be then. Until then. We're signing off, although over on Twitch, we're going to raid somebody. We're going to raid a newcomer, a friend of my buddy Scott's, Millie Ringworm, who does horror-based streams and stuff like that. So, Ricky, that sounds like something in your wheelhouse. So, yeah, that's that for you. So we're going to raid her, give her some love, and we will be back hopefully in a couple of weeks. Until
and listen to this album. Yes. Listen to it.
And listen to the Nameless Dead.
Until then, see you soon.
Oh.
Sing to the slaves.
Sing to the slaves.